Welcome to Pabons and BK, the business of family and fashion. I'm Dre Pabon,
I'm Mikaela Pabons.
and we are here at #BK Bedford Stuyvesant.
We'll be talking about all things business, all things family, everything encompassed in that. And we would love it if you enjoy this to leave us a comment afterwards, to subscribe on whichever platform you're watching us on or listening to us on.
Comment if you really like us.
Share.
That would be fantastic.
I don't know if I ever looked at it. I don't know if I ever looked at starting things with the idea that I would fail. So it didn't feel like it was a courage to fail necessarily, just a courage to do something new. Or something that I was interested in. So probably no one here knows that I started, maybe except for Eric, I started a business way back in the day called Fashion Junk. And it was a website that I think I told you about. It was a website where I was going to be, my first iteration was like fashion news, right? So I was going to be doing like street style and I'd be going out and taking pictures myself and, different news around maybe urban fashion or local fashion or something like that. And I designed the website myself. I was like super nerd and I taught myself how to use Dreamweaver. And I designed this website. We talked about that 50 days ago.
Oh, Dreamweaver.
Designed my own website and I had my own branding. And I thought Fashion Junk was going to be the stuff. And this was back in the day when website forums, like online forums, were the thing, and everybody was on forums, like talking and stuff. That's where I met Eric on OK Player. And so like that was a thing. So I had a little fashion forum on there, and yeah. So I just thought this was gonna be lit. And it did nothing. I had maybe 3 or 4 people sign up on my message board. It was way more time consuming than I thought it would be. And I just couldn't keep up with it by myself. I was literally doing it all myself. And I just couldn't do it. So I let that go. And then I kept the name because I really liked it. I really just liked Fashion Junk. I don't know why. So I was an avid thrifter. I used to go thrifting all the time, me and my girl Sonia. And then I thought, well, maybe I can do this as reselling vintage.
That's what I remember you telling.
Yeah. So I thought, let me do this as reselling vintage. So we would do photo shoots in my brother's basement of either me or like a model or somebody in my little vintage finds that we put on the website. Sold not a thing. Not one piece of clothing. And then I thought, oh, what about if we do this as a place where other vintage resellers could come and sell their clothes? So it'd be like a marketplace where there'd be a lot of different vintage brands. And this is where you came involved, I think. A lot of different vintage brands could sell their clothing. And so I started working with a designer in India.
I remember that. That's the time difference and the language barrier was.
Yeah. So I started working with a developer in India who was going to help me build out this marketplace. And it never went anywhere. I don't think we even got.
He didn't develop it.
He didn't finish it. We got maybe halfway done. And it just was just too much. It got to the point where it felt too stressful, and I lost the joy. I didn't enjoy it anymore. It wasn't fun. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let this go, and I let the domain name go, and I just stopped. That was it. Of course, I still thrifted, but I didn't have the idea of like wanting to sell any until Christian was a baby. And had no idea what sparked this idea again of me wanting to sell clothes online. I don't remember where that spark came from I don't remember where it came from, but I thought, oh, I could do this. Literally not thinking about the past, literally not thinking about how poorly I did before. And honestly, not even thinking about where I made mistakes and how I could
Fix it.
fix it.
Yeah.
I didn't think about any of that. And that's definitely something that you have to learn from your failures. But I didn't do any of that. I was like, oh, I can do this. Woo. And because you had already had your connections in, the trade shows and all of your fashion friends, like you kind of had Tony once take me to a trade show.
Yeah, because he was already at the trade show, and he could get you a badge.
So I just went just as like a voyeur, just kind of watching and seeing how people worked. And
I remember you came home and you were like, I need you to go with me.
Yes, because I didn't know what to say.
It was overwhelming, yeah.
Yeah.
And first time, you're just
But you didn't even go with me that time. I don't think you could go with me. You just kind of coached me on what to say, what questions to ask, what terms to use.
Yep.
Just so I can sound like I knew what I was talking about. Because I had no idea what I was talking about.
Because if a salesperson asks you a question and you don't answer it the right way, they're just not going to take you serious.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to talk.
So I went in there with full confidence because he had kind of coached me up to be like, okay, this is what you need to say. These are the things you need to talk about. These are the questions you need to ask. If they ask you this is how you answer. I was pretty confident. I was only nervous that I wouldn't have enough money to buy the things that I wanted to buy. I think that was my only fear. And yeah, I just kind of went into that without any fear, without any thought of the past failures. So for me, it was never like, I've got the courage to start again. It just was an internal, like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And it was never, I never had a fear to jump over.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Sometimes I get so consumed by an idea and figuring out how to make it work, I'm not thinking about fear or failure, even though I failed so many times at certain various levels of just business and entrepreneurship. Excuse me. Business or entrepreneurship, or whatever. It's just like, why wouldn't I do this?
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to find this tweet, but it was like I was on Twitter the other day, and this young lady was just like talking about how the fear of the unknown kind of like paralyzes her, and like that's what hinders her in her mind from succeeding at something. And I just felt really bad. Wow, like that's not something that even crosses my mind. I'm just like, if I feel like I put my mind to something, I'm going to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
And whatever the varying level of success I get to is whatever. Like, am I going to try to go for the ultimate success? Absolutely. But like, I'm also okay with like, and the only thing that I feel like is a failure is if you quit.
If you don't give yourself enough time.
And it's just like, and I've done that too, where it's just like, I'm going to just drop this because I can't, whatever. And it's funny that you said your site, because I had a blog.
Yep.
That I thought was so dope. The Curators Blog. It was like me curating all the stuff that I like in sneakers, fashion, technology. The 5 people that would visit it every day said that it was great and my writing was fantastic. 3 of the 5 were people that I worked with that were my friends.
I wanted you to restart that too.
Because you want to hear something funny, I still have the login on Twitter.
Wow.
So it's like, remember, Twitter sent me an email like, hey, Curators Blog. I was like, holy shit, I haven't seen this in so long. But and that was something that I started a year before me and my ex separated. So like the reason why I just gave up on it was because, but, and I remember I was working at a company and I came up with this idea and I was telling people that I worked with and they were just like, well, what's the point of this? And I said, eventually I want it to be like, at the time, Karma Loop was the thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, eventually I want it to be a Karma Loop. I want the Curators Blog, goods and, stuff, brands that I curate, on the site. And they were like, well, why don't you just do that? And I was just like, well, I want to start a blog so I can get a following and kind of like get traction for it and then start introducing, what's going on. Cause this is like 2008, 2009. 2008, 2009. And it was like, I had seen the early days of the Complex Media Network. And I had a couple of friends, loose friends, people that we met, but we had gotten friendly that was starting their own blogs, like Nice Kicks.
Oh.
Soul Collector. You know what I mean? Like it was funny when I was looking at what to wear today, I saw my first sneaker collab. It was a collab between Young Euro, which I was the marketing director for, and Soul Collector. Like, I remember early days of Skype, having meetings with like Nick DePaula, who's like writing for the New York Times about sneakers. This is real nerd sneaker shit. And then like my guy Matt Halfhill, who was like the founder of Nice Kicks. I remember early Skype meetings with him talking about it, whatever. So I saw these guys doing it, and I'm like, I've got way more business experience than these knuckleheads. And, I love sneakers, and I was like, I'm going to just do this blog. And like, I had started it kind of like in that recession of 2008. And I remember, what was the blogging platform that Apple had? Apple had its own blogging platform. Like, you can create your own website. It was not Dreamweaver. It was like, there was an Apple, like if Apple was like GoDaddy. Published your site.
I was like,
this is pre-Shopify. No, Apple had its own, and it was already installed in the thing, and that's how I would do my blog, and I would, push my content, RSS feeds, all of the stuff. 08, 09.
Yeah.
Chloe was still a baby in the crib. I'm just sitting there like scouring Japanese streetwear magazines for like brands or whatever. And it failed, and I just quit, and I felt bad that I quit. I have thought about resurrecting it.
You've talked about it a lot.
I have. I love that thing. So, my boy John Price designed my logo. It was fantastic. And then, starting something new, I don't know. It just never registers to me that it's going to,
or that it could fail.
Or it could fail.
It's just,
I can't do it.
Yeah, it's just kind of something inside of you that's like, you should do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, and my thing is like,
I have more fear around ordering something at a restaurant that I'm not going to like. I'm not going to.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know, man. I've never had that anxiety that something wouldn't work, especially because, and this is like what I filter it through, which is, am I passionate about this thing? Like, am I really trying to do this? Like, do I love this? Like, we talked about this all the time.
Yeah.
Even when you were starting, like, do you love this? Like, is this something that you really want to do? Like don't put all of this time and energy into something that you think you like, or whatever, but like, how committed are you to something? Like, if you make that decision that you're going to move forward and like give this a go, you know what I mean? It's like, keep going. It's like, I just feel like you only fail if you quit.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people get in their heads about the how. Like, the how is just so daunting. And a lot of times that will completely stop you in your tracks from doing anything, because you're so worried about, how am I going to get to step 28? And it's like, can you get to step 1 first?
Yeah.
Get to step 1. Don't worry about what's happening at 28, because your life could be in a completely different place, by the time you get to 27, that 28 is going to feel like step one again. It's going to be so easy for you.
And we had this conversation a lot. Like, the whole thing about being an entrepreneur or starting something or having an idea about something is like conquering that unknown and being okay with it.
Being okay with it.
Being okay with the unknown. How many times I would tell you, like, you have your goal, or if you have where you want to go, and then you know where you are, and as long as you're headed in that direction, who cares where what happens in the middle? Because it's, we talked about it on the last episode that we shot. It was just like, when I started the Shrine, I made a list of people that I wanted to have with this bag or this product, and I wrote it down. I didn't know these people. I didn't have any connection to these people.
Like,
I
no direct action.
I didn't understand how it was going to happen. And I just, hey, this is what I want. And then, lo and behold, somebody I know, and then it makes it happen. And it's like, I've read, a lot of Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Bezos, and they all said the same thing when they were they didn't know where the money was coming from. They didn't know what was going to happen. They just had an idea, and they're like, we're just going to do this. And things just started falling into place.
Yeah.
Like, you're putting the energy out there. You're like being smart about it, obviously making good decisions.
And being open. I think a lot of times people are so worried about the how, and then they focus on the
fix it
on a specific how.
Yeah.
That if something else comes along, they can't even see it. Like, how you can't even see what else is coming your way.
Real opportunity. Yeah. That's just being focused on what it is that you think how you think it should be.
Right. Because I for the longest thought I was going to be a celebrity stylist. That was my thing. I was going to be a stylist. I was going to be styling celebrities. And then
it ain't too late.
No, but I'm kind of doing it though, right?
Yep.
I'm not necessarily styling them, but I'm dressing them. Yeah. They're wearing my clothes that I've designed. So in a roundabout way, so it didn't turn out the way I expected it to, but I still got there.
And I think people think that's failure. It didn't happen the way I thought it would happen.
It didn't happen in the time that I thought.
Oh, the time. Well, this should have happened by now. Like, listen.
Yeah.
Like, success isn't linear. It's just not like a straight line.
And the comparison, like,
that's something that I struggled with, but I had to kind of get over to, like, well, why is this guy doing this, that, and the third?
I struggle with it too. And especially in the influencer world, when you feel like me, I felt like, my content is great. How come I'm not getting that job? And a lot of times, when you're doing that, because I used to do that, I'd see something and it would be, my first thought was, oh, that's dope. Second thought, but why not me? And it's like, that can't be your second thought. That can't be a thought at all. Because at that point, you're blocking your blessing because you're worried about yourself. And that's not even a real congratulations at any point. Once you bring yourself into the situation, your congratulations to somebody else is null and void. Like, don't even bother even saying it if you have thoughts of, why not me at that point? Like, don't give it to me. I want a full, I'm so happy for you. This is all about you. Great. And that's what I want to give to other people. I don't want to give any half-hearted congratulations, because I was doing that at some point years ago. I had to look at myself like, I do that.
I remember you talking about it.
And I didn't realize it was such a bad thing until she said it. And I had to literally stop myself. Literally say the words, stop, Mikaela. And that is how I broke myself out of that, the why not me syndrome, I call it. Because
I hate the must be nice people. Bruh. Like, I remember I can remember hanging out with Tony Shelton at like the height of Indy, and like guys driving a Porsche, it's got this beautiful brownstone on gates, and he's swimming in cash. Ever remember him being like, you're not
Right.
like, oh, this is fantastic. Like, I just was so happy to like see my people winning, right? Like, dude, like, and then it was just like, it always dawned on me like, this knucklehead can do this. And you know what I'm saying? And Tony knows I love him. He calls himself a knucklehead. But like, seriously, like, if this guy can do this, like, there's nothing that if I want to do something, I can just do this, right? Like, and my version of success is, I don't know, would I like a Porsche maybe or whatever? But like, I was never that person. And then I remember like, as I started like moving up in my career and telling people what I was doing and like, oh, we're doing this and this budget this and, you know, whatever, people were like, must be nice. Be like, one, it is. Two, like, really? Like, you know what else is nice? Working really hard.
Yeah.
You know what's really nice? Coming up with a plan and executing it and not stopping until you get there.
Mm-hmm.
That must be really nice.
It is really nice.
Isn't it? It's never like, must be nice. Like, bruh, like, is that even a compliment? Or is it just like, you're not where you want to be?
Compliment at all. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
That I was talking about. It's just like thinking about yourself and how you don't have what that person has. I don't know if it's necessarily a jealousy per se, but it's just
more.
Maybe, yeah.
Envy more.
Just like.
Still a 7 deadly sin.
Yeah.
In that whole vein.
Where I started to see people who were succeeding or doing something that I wanted to do, even if it was something that I didn't necessarily aspire to do, it was like, wow, she can do that? Bet.
Possible.
Bet it is possible. And that is seeing people like Kalila, Mess in a Bottle, Sharice from Sassy Jones, and hearing them talk about, you know, how they literally started from nothing and how they grew it. They just had this desire. They had these ideas. They had the drive. And these Black women made this shit happen. Millions of dollars off of T-shirts and hoodies or off of jewelry or whatever it is. And I'm just like, real, like, I really didn't know that this stuff was possible.
You used to talk about that.
I didn't know. And so seeing them share was like, wow, man, like, I can really do this. I had no ego in that at all. It was just like, man, that is fantastic. Congratulations. I'm doing that too. Like, and I'm not just going to do it. I'm also going to share the journey so that people can be inspired the same way that I was. I think that's really important.
I did not always have that same sentiment that you had. I'd share freely with my friends.
Yeah.
Anyone knows that if I really know you and you need some help with something, or if you give me a call, you need some advice, talk all day about whatever you want to talk about. Yeah. Everybody else, not so much.
That's a little bit to my down.
Yeah. But, you know, a good example is like, I have a friend, we grew up together, and his name is Steve, Left Rack City, grew up in the same neighborhood. And, you know, passing by friends, like nothing like we hung out crazy, but, you know, we know each other or whatever. I remember somebody told me he had started a sneaker company. Like, I know that brand. Like, yeah, Sneaker Steve. I'm like, Sneaker Steve is the same Steve that I grew up with in Left Right. They're like, yeah. It was just like, holy crap. And I remember seeing him in LA one time, and it was like, I went to his store. And I remember going into a place and it was just like all of his footwear. And I was just like, wow, Steve, like,
Did it?
oh, dude. I'm like, what does your mother think about this? Like, he's like, I moved her out to LA. And like, that was like the first time where like somebody I grew up with, I was just like, this is like real, real, real business. Like, this is like big time. Why? And, you know, I've always been the, not comparison, but like, if this person can do it,
Yeah.
I can do it. Like, I've always been that, you know. My brother Phil, I mean,
You had the best example.
followed right in his footsteps. Like, it was like, seeing his ascent, music and fashion and just, and dance. Like, he lived several lives successfully that was just like, and it was just always like, he was, you know, I guess that's why I never thought about what if it doesn't happen or what if I fail or whatever. Because I just always, I've had examples. I've been fortunate enough to have like, I've always been the youngest in a group of older Black men who were doing things at various levels of success and, you know, seeking out. That's one thing Tony taught me was seek out mentors for every level. Like, seek people out that you can talk to, that you can, you know, get advice from, you know, just learn from. Like, just like,
That. Besides you.
yeah, I mean, but you have tried, I think, to create like a peer group. Remember the way Issa Rae said, like, sometimes you gotta like network sideways or whatever, but like, it's kind of like, I don't know, just for naturally, I've just kind of gravitated towards people. And I think a lot of people, like, I've heard with a lot of people, like, they never had that because, I don't know, is it ego for some people?
Us.
Like, wanted to just all myself. If I don't do it all by myself, that doesn't really count. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's like,
Or not wanting to give someone else credit
for the help.
for the help, which I've
But, you know, I've failed, quote unquote, businesses failed. Brand, and, you know, we were talking about this a few weeks ago. It was like, you know, me and John and we started a luxury streetwear brand before streetwear was even popular. It was just like, what the hell were we doing? We were knuckleheads spending a lot of money.
fascinated though. I was fascinated when you were telling me that story because I'm like, what, you actually had to you actually had like meetings with, I was fascinated by that.
It was like a really good learning. I remember, so John was designing with Yanusa. I was doing the business stuff in terms of like business plans and, you know, obviously marketing vision and spends, you know, whatever. And Yanusa knew how to get stuff made because Yanusa's, you know, a great designer with a great history in fashion. And he just knew production, who to call. John had these ideas, they would design it together, and then 8 weeks later we'd have samples. I'd just be like, wow.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. And I remember John's in-law, one of John's in-laws, maybe an uncle, was the personal driver for Andrew. Founded Theory. And John's uncle set us up with a meeting.
Tell me you had this meeting.
Oh, no, that was a different.
Oh, that was a different thing.
What I'm talking about, that was some racist whatever stuff. But after that meeting, we sit down with Andrew from Theory. He invites us to, I don't even know if it's still there, a restaurant called Koi. sushi place right at Bryant Park, like Bryant Park Hotel. And a place that at the time none of us could afford to eat. Like, and he sits us down and he hears this pitch and he loves it. And he's going through the numbers with me and I'm going back and forth with him. And he was like, everything you are talking about is sound, but I couldn't do this for half. And he paid me a really good compliment. It was just looking at my boys about, like, you know,
We're turning.
I've always felt like I could have been a little bit more ruthless in my career to be like, I'm just gonna do what's good for me. But I never. He's my guy.
Yeah.
Like, we did this together. But he loved the designs. He loved what we had to do. He didn't really see it at the time because streetwear wasn't a big thing at the time. And for us to do luxury streetwear, this is before Fear of God, public school, or 04, 05, like early. And I think the failure there was that we didn't keep going. We didn't keep going because what was the last thing we talked about? Timing. 2 years later, you started to see all of these Japanese brands taking streetwear and flipping it, selling it back to us as luxury streetwear. A Visu ended up blowing up. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, had we stuck it out another year with my contacts and, I could, we could have done something here and blown up, and like the industry would have been different at the time, but we quit.
Failure. Different.
In a different form. Stop. We couldn't get past frustration, stay together as a crew, and keep it going.
And thinking about it, failures, I think I've registered failures more in relationships than in like business.
Funny you say that. A lot of my business failures have been the failures of the relationships.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah. And none of my relationships, friendships, whatever it is, had to do with business at all. But I feel like I felt those more deeply.
Like something ripped out.
Yeah, I felt those a lot more deeply than business failures, because I've always felt like, okay, next I'll do something else, or this is not the right time, or, whatever. Except with Vetu de Joy, I felt that felt personal to me because I was doing it for.
Took that hard.
Yeah, because it felt like it was my identity.
Yeah.
Like I thought that people only thought I was interesting because I had this, or they only thought I was worthy of their time, or
because you brought something to the table that was a perceived.
Yeah. So that's still, maybe it just registered as relationships for me. But yeah, I think for me, like, the relationships really, like, when that fails, I'm like, ugh.
This is, I don't think I've ever articulated this, but I think a lot of the reasons why a lot of my business ventures were unsuccessful is because I was relying too much on partners and where I didn't feel like I was good enough to do something by myself.
Yeah, you did tell me that. You told me about that in the content business.
Yes. But what I didn't tell you is that the reason why I feel like things are so good with our partnership with Dress and Joy is because you're a great partner. Like, our marriage is like, I don't ever think that you're gonna do something bad and on any levels, let alone business, right? Like, and like, there's no ego here in terms of our marriage and our business relationship.
And at this point, that can't.
No, of course. No, but it's just, I've articulated to myself that like I've been going into business.
And this is our second business together.
Yes. But I always have felt that I can't just do this by myself. Let's put together a team. Let's go. Like, you do this, and we're all gonna be rich, and we're all gonna do this. And then at some point, it's always like something where the vibe of the team happened with the shrine.
Yeah.
It happened with, like you said, like the first iteration of #BK. And it's just like, I just be looking at people, looking at these dudes like, seriously talking about this? Like, what does this have to do with the business? And it's like, I know I have a strong personality, and it's like, are you offended, or am I intimidating, or is me just being here making you feel negative, like you're in that? Because it was like a lot of that was with, the original hashtag, and then even with the shrine stuff, it was like people started seeing me as the face of the brand. Other partners were like, I need you to tell my story. I would do. Because you're the head of marketing. But you're not comfortable, like, people weren't comfortable being in front of the camera or being the one who was front man. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you don't want to be the one telling the story, don't be mad at me because everybody likes me because I can tell a good story. We'd be at the trade shows with the shrine, and like we'd have to go to events and like shake hands and kiss babies and network and be like, and I would take this kid and I'd be like, yo, this is my partner in the shrine. He's the designer. He's the this, he's the that. His social anxiety disorder was just like, I gotta go. I'm out. And they'd be like, okay, well, I still gotta work. I'm gonna be here. And then when we see people at the trade show, it's like everybody loves me because we're doing those. And everybody.
And they already know you because you've been in that world.
It's already built in.
Yeah.
And you know how many people would come to the booth and be like, yo, you really built? Look over it. Yeah, I did. And, especially with that,
the failure of that relationship.
That relationship left to the failure of the business situation. I mean, they're still around, but.
Yeah. The same capacity.
They are literally doing the same marketing strategy.
That was 2 years ago? Right, exactly.
Nothing new. It's all same hashtags, the same format. I still get the emails. I check in on it like maybe every 6 months to be like, oh, these guys are still like using the same formula.
Yeah.
Because I have since parlayed that into several other things. It's just that's where failures for me happen. It's like the relationships formed in the business fail, which means the business fails. Now I have.
Bring me Doritos.
As long as I sit where she tells me to sit. And I keep a fresh bag of Doritos, and I don't eat all the.
You don't eat them all in the middle of the night, and then I don't have any the next day. As long as you don't continue to do that.
So I've continued to do that for 10 years. Yes. But yeah, I mean,
I think the big lesson to learn here is it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to not know.
That's the big thing. Like, it is okay to not know how you will become successful or not become successful. Like, you got to step in the darkness. Like, you got to just put yourself out there. And we both struggle with this. Like, we make something and then we're just like sensitive about like putting it out. And it's just like, and what do we talk about with this podcast? Like, nervous. But I was telling you, like, I don't fear the failure. I feel the things that come with it.
Yeah.
And that's like another part. Like if this thing blows up, all the things that I don't like are going to happen. And I'm working.
And that's why it took me how long to talk you into doing this?
It's been about a year. More than that, maybe about 13 months, 14. Because you talked about us doing a podcast. Like,
actually, I talked about you doing a podcast. First, I thought you should do a podcast.
Business branding. And
yeah, especially in, during the pandemic, we just had to have so many conversations. Like, what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, you should, like, people might want to hear this. You should.
You know what it was? Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. That's what it was.
Because